and they can place a hold on that for you. And I think that is all for our housekeeping announcements. And I want to introduce Adrienne Pettinelli. She is the director of the Henrietta Public Library. She's had other roles in libraries as well and has done similar presentations to this recently due to a lot of book challenges, etc., and a documentary that just came out, which she will talk more about. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Adrienne, who will tell you more about herself, the book, and the topic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much, Dina, and to the library for having me. It's nice to see friends in the audience. This is a topic I have talked about a lot, book challenges, book banning, and I'll get into a little bit more about why that is while I'm talking about this book. But I've been a librarian. It will be 30 years this year. I started working in an earthquake engineering research library all those years ago, and have really my whole adult life worked in libraries, which is to say, like, this is my thing. Libraries are my thing. I really can't imagine what else I would do for money if I hadn't become a librarian. So I was very lucky that I started on that early in my career. I was a children's librarian for a lot of my career. I had a lot of book challenges. They tend to be about children's books. So it's something I've worked with on that side of it as a frontline staff member. And then I've been managing the Henrietta Public Library for 13 years now. And we've had some issues there too, which I'll talk about. I've been following Amanda Jones' story since it first started going public, because it was around 2020 when book challenges really started to ramp up in a way that started to concern the library community. And the library community is a tight community where a group of people who do a very particular, weird job that people misunderstand in a lot of ways. And so we rely a lot on each other. There's a lot of networking, a lot of associations. If I meet a librarian in the area or a library worker in the area who I don't know, we definitely know a lot of the same people, kind of thing. And honestly, that extends across the country. I know people all over the place. So when somebody's ailing, going through a really difficult time in the library community, we all feel that, right? And this thing with book challenges has been very scary to us. Because of a lot of the things, if you read the book, I hope you all read the book, that Amanda talks about. This is a phenomenon that is really happening everywhere. And so what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to connect some of the things that Amanda talks about in the book to local incidents. And so we're going to look at some of those and see the similarities, because the techniques are very similar. And I think also a lot of times what I hear from folks is they're like, well, we're lucky to be in New York State. We're lucky that these things don't happen here, but they do. And yes, I think we do have more protections in New York State, but also I don't think this is something we can relax about either. So let's dive in. I've already been using the word book challenge. I think this is in the book. I'm gonna need my light. I do have my reading glasses nearby, but I did the really big type for my notes. I just feel like this crowd will understand. Although, as a librarian, when I needed reading glasses, I was like, I read enough. I won. I've ruined my eyes the way my parents said I would. So book bans are really when a book is officially removed by a body that has some kind of authority, right? That's pretty rare in the United States, or at least historically has been rare in the United States. It is becoming more common. Book challenges are a lot more what a lot of us are dealing with And certainly the kind of thing Amanda was dealing with this in this book is, somebody has an objection to something in the library collection, and they bring that objection in some kind of formal way or informal, as the case may be. But they're trying to get items removed, and whatever that process is. So just to make sure we're all in the same kind of place with that. So I have an NPR story here that I'm going to play for you, which she mentions in the book. One of the first interviews she did back when this all first started happening in 2022. So let's listen to it. 6 minutes.
The battle inside America's libraries is playing out in the monthly meetings of the Lafayette, Louisiana Library Board of Control. We'll begin at the August meeting. After reports on the bookmobile, library hours, and plans for a new branch, the lectern is open for public comments.
Everything that has happened in the past 18 months with this board and to the library has been basically a dystopian nightmare.
Since conservatives took over the Lafayette Library Board last year, the controversies have come one after the other. The library board rejected a grant to fund a program about voting rights, saying it was too left-wing. They canceled Drag Queen Storytime. A display about Pride Month was banned. Now the libraries forbid displays about any group, even Cajuns. And when a popular librarian, Kara Chance, disobeyed that order and put up a display that included queer romance, the board tried to get her fired.
Hold up your signs for Kara again. Thank you. We don't support fascism in the Lafayette Public Library.
Lafayette Parish is deeply conservative Trump country, red as a boiled crawfish. So others in the community applaud the board's shift to the right. A man in a tie and blue blazer steps up to the mic.
I'm a father of four children, young children, and my daughter found a cartoon book that was basically pornographic, encouraged children to explore themselves in a variety of ways. It was in the children's section.
Lafayette Parish is by no means unique. Across America, fractious debates over free speech in public and school libraries have turned these hushed realms into combat zones. Traditional values groups are demanding bans or restrictions on books with explicit sex education and books that unflinchingly document queer lifestyles and the Black American experience. The American Library Association, in its unofficial tally, reports that challenges of library books have jumped fourfold, from around 400 books in 2017 to nearly 1,600 book challenges last year. The president of the Lafayette Library Board is Robert Judge, a retired insurance claims adjuster and a devout Catholic. He thinks the library's mission should submit to a traditional notion of family values and community standards.
See, this is where we get into the sticky ground is, do we allow a governmental agency, which is the library is a governmental agency, to supersede parents' rights? And do we protect parents' rights, or we just say, well, that's the stuff that we have and we put it anywhere, if the kid stumbles upon it, it's not our problem.
To appease critics, the library moved 1,100 nonfiction books, including graphic sex ed books, from the young adult section to the adult collections. All of the changes since right-wingers took over the library have infuriated liberal patrons.
We're really upset that the library is being used in this, I guess, I'm gonna call it culture wars.
Jean Bernard is a homeschool mom who started an anti-censorship Facebook group called Supporters of Lafayette Public Libraries.
It is not the Board of Control's position to micromanage the library. Librarians need to be able to manage the library. This is a public library, it's for everyone. Whether they don't like the materials or the programs, don't attend, don't check out the material.
That argument has gone nowhere. Conservative Christians are on a roll, and they want what offends them purged from the stacks. Standing in their way can have severe consequences. Last month, a middle school librarian named Amanda Jones spoke out against censorship at a meeting of the library board where she lives and works in Livingston Parish, not far from Baton Rouge.
The citizens of our parish consist of taxpayers who are white, black, brown, gay, straight, Christian, and non-Christian.
She said people come in all races, genders, and sexual orientations, and one segment of the community cannot dictate what the rest of the library patrons may have access to. Amanda Jones' words have weight. She's won several Librarian of the Year
few days later, I opened the internet, and there were pictures of me, awful memes saying I advocate teaching erotica and pornography to 6-year-olds. It gave my school's name. None of that was true. I gave a blanket speech on censorship, and they decided they wanted to make me a target, and it has not stopped.
They is Citizens for a New Louisiana, the same group that's behind the conservative takeover of the Lafayette Library Board. The group has harshly criticized Jones on his Facebook page for defending books they consider obscene and inappropriate for children.
We have this page that actually shows intercourse. Then we have things like this that have close-ups of genitalia.
Michael Lunsford is director of Citizens for a New Louisiana, which he calls a government accountability group. In his office in Lafayette, he pulls out one of the books they targeted and opens it to an illustration.
We've got a page here on masturbation and how to do it. And this kind of stuff, this is what parents are for.
But why attack a librarian for a book that's in the library? Is defending a sex ed book, even a graphic one, really promoting smut?
I don't know that we attack her personally. We have to question what type of influence does she have over what our children see in school libraries as the president of the association.
In the current toxic political climate, Amanda Jones says she has begun to fear for her life.
I'm sorry. It's horrible. My anxiety is through the roof. I live in constant fear that some person that they've incited is going to come and get me, or get my child, or come up to the school where I work and harm a child. And it's been a month of this, and it just won't stop.
Last week, Amanda Jones sued Michael Lunsford, his organization, and another individual she says is trolling her. The lawsuit asks for a court order to stop what it calls harassment and defamation. Meanwhile, Citizens for a New Louisiana has announced its intention to target libraries in all 64 parishes in the state. John Burnett, NPR News, Lafayette, Louisiana.
There we go. So I like that story because he really lays out, the reporter, a lot of the sides, and I like, you get to hear the voices of a couple of the folks who, certainly Amanda, but then also the gentleman too. So it kind of adds some context, I think, to the whole thing. And I remember listening to that story when it first aired, and just being like, wow, this is really off the rails, this situation. And, we were starting to hear a lot more of these kind of stories. And again, it's just being really upsetting. So I want to connect that to a story that happened at the beginning of last year, about a year ago, in the Penfield School District, which maybe you guys are aware of or maybe not. Here's a story that Noelle Evans did for WXXI News on that.
Now the district is in the national spotlight over an illustrated children's book about a child attending a pride parade. WXXI's Noelle Evans has this.
Started when a parent in the district, Jennifer Sullivan, complained about a book called The Rainbow Parade at a school board meeting last month. Sullivan singled out a page in the book that included a cartoon illustration of parade goers bare behind. Sullivan said her 5th grader had brought it home.
This garbage spreads radicalism, and it's a failure.
Before this week's meeting, several community groups put out calls to support parents' free speech. That included a press release to media outlets, including WXXI, from a group called Penfield Opposing Woke Education Racism, which also opposes diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. A pastor at a local church also sent an online newsletter requesting people attend. A large crowd gathered at the meeting. About an hour into the meeting, the superintendent explained the district policy on selecting and opposing library materials. The crowd grew disruptive, and school board president Emily Roberts closed the meeting early.
Yes, I will be going to go into recess and have a motion. Thank you. We are in recess.
So that really blew up, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. One thing that's referenced there, and one thing that she talks about in that librarian, is this kind of process that libraries and school libraries have for challenging a book, right? So if you see a book in the library and you're like, I don't understand why this is here, I don't understand why this is in a particular collection, you have the right to ask a question about that. And most libraries have what's called a collection development policy. Schools have similar policies that explain how you can do that. And there's formal channels to go through. You know, you can't just shout on the internet and expect, you know, somebody to take you seriously. And it's, you know, in a lot of libraries, schools have forms. And so you'll see this over and over where people will kind of go and they'll speak out, or they'll, you know, swear at you on the floor or whatever they're doing. And you know, they won't go and kind of do that next step to make a formal complaint or a formal request for reconsideration that gives you the information that you need to kind of really seriously look at the question. And I would say through my career, I've had a lot of great conversations with patrons from those kinds of requests, not the kind that are shouty or swearing or telling me that I'm going to burn in hell or whatever the case may be, but the kind where somebody does fill out the form and says, hey, I read this thing, I saw this thing, my kid brought home this thing, you know, why is it there? Is it in the right collection? You know, here's what I saw, here's why, you know, and then you can look at it. And librarians will do that. We have, you know, in a collection like Brighton's, which must have well over 100,000 volumes, I would think, ours does, we don't read all those books. We can't. We would love to, but we cannot. You know, so we're purchasing them from reviews. We're getting them in hundreds at a time. You know, they're going on the shelf, and maybe something did wind up in the wrong collection. That's happened to me as a children's librarian. You know, I remember one book. Am I still mic'd? All of a sudden, I don't hear myself echoing. Did I knock myself out? Did I? Oh, and pull the pack out?
Yeah, maybe.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the other
Okay.
mic and swap the battery.
Sorry, technical difficulties. I thought it was going to be my audio and video. There's more video that's coming. So I remember one particular incident where a patron flags something at my old library. I was at Webster in the children's department. Thank you. And I definitely agreed with her. It was not a book that was of interest to children. It belonged in the teen section. A lot of the other libraries had it in the teen section. It was, you know, book 5 in a series, and it had really changed tone. You know, the books were growing up with the kids, you know, and I just didn't know, we didn't know. So we moved it. You know, that's great. That's the public helping us. So that is not a problem, and I always like to emphasize that that is not a problem to ask those questions and have those conversations. But I guess what I would say is the problem in my mind, and certainly what you saw in the book, is the tenor of the kinds of conversations that folks have. And I'm going to play for you a little bit of the Penfield board meeting that Noelle just referred to, which had the crowd and had a man dressed in a gorilla costume, and people were shouting out. Many of you may have heard this story, but maybe didn't see the actual school board meeting, and you will not be able to hear what the people in the audience are shouting out. You can kind of hear that they are shouting, but what I want to show this is to show how the board is reacting to this, because I think it gives a good sense of what the tenor of the situation was.
Board members will be given the challenge material to read, watch, and/or listen to in its entirety. The board will evaluate the challenged material according to the material. So Dr. Book or the appeal
Shoot, there we go.
material. So Dr. Maloney, I know that your office oversees our library media specialist and curriculum and instruction. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to what I've shared relative to our policies? Absolutely, Dr. Potter. I really appreciate you going through step by step the process for challenging a book or the appeals process. One of the pieces that I wanted to mention is, as you mentioned, my office oversees the library department, and so I would facilitate a committee should a book be challenged. And to ensure that we have a fair process to selecting members of the committee, depending on the number of stakeholders interested, we can do a recorded lottery like we do for UPK. A recorded lottery is when we survey a stakeholder group. In this case, it would be parents, teachers, or students. And those who are interested would share their name, and then we get a big old bingo roller like you see on the lottery at 7:30, I think, every night, and we shake it up, and then we pull the names, and all while recording, so that if people have a question, they're welcome to watch the recording. And another option, and this actually has been done recently with some of our committees within the district, that we've been looking for stakeholder input. Another option is, depending on the number of responses we get, again, we would survey a stakeholder group for those interested, and then have all who respond actually serve on the committee. I believe that's what we're doing with the policies that we're writing relative to.
Jump it forward just a little. There we go. No. I had it at the wrong spot.
Excuse me, if you cannot be quiet during this.
Here we are.
Recommendations in terms of what curriculum they align to. The librarians also look for recommendations from students, families, teachers. There's lots of ways that books are selected for the library. It's not just simply one way. I think that my question, right, would be that, excuse me, if you cannot be quiet during this, we're gonna ask for you to be removed. Thank you. I think it's important to know that when Dr. Potter said that no one has objected, we have the policy in place, right? The procedures in place to object. Excuse me, that is not how you object. So if you cannot, again, follow by what we have asked you to do, we will ask those people who cannot do that to be removed. We are here at our board meeting, right, conducting our business. You guys and I will explain. You don't pay us because we don't get paid. Yes, we are gonna go into a recess and have a motion. Thank you. We are in recess.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show there, like how that, so you've got, they really are trying to conduct business. They're trying to understand this book challenge that, again, informal. At this point, there have been no formal book challenge made. A person came to speak up about a book, and we're going to look at that in a second. But these folks all just came and they're shouting and and really unsettling the board members and interfering with their ability to do their work. I don't know how many of you serve on boards or have served on boards or tried to do meetings like this. They are not easy. There's a lot of work that you have to do just to be in the room, and then in the room there's a lot of business you have to conduct and get done. So that's just super disruptive to the operations of the system. And this is common. Again, we saw tactics like this in that librarian being used. I want to show you the original complaint. So we're going to go back to that previous Penfield board meeting where school board meeting where the parent actually talked about the book. Let me make sure I have this queued up right. Yes. I think she's going to come up.
So we have public comment. So Mrs. Silver, while you're coming up, I'm just going to read this. We ask that you limit your comment to 3 minutes or
So it's pretty reasonable.
I'm here. My name is Jennifer Salver. I've been a Penfield resident my entire life. I went to Cobbles, Bay Trail, Penfield High School. My daughter's in 6th grade at Cobbles. She brought home a book from the library, and I will give you the material. It was on display, The Rainbow Parade. Also, there was another book, Not Quite Narwhal, My Sister's Hand. These books, mind you, are available to 5-year-olds. And knowing that they're available to kindergartners is just mind-blowing. They're displayed up front, colorful, and of course, children are attracted to colorful things, books, sparkly things. That's why it's in this district's SIC agenda to have these books displayed in the manner they are. And this isn't even the worst of them. Penfield was once a school where people wanted to send their kids because of the district, and it surpassed its numbers than any other district, and is now plummeting. Even seeing the numbers tonight, 50% less than that, that's crazy. They're plummeting in every single grade and subject because of the SEL, DEI, and the CRT that is coming down all the way from the superintendent and the minions to pervert the children's minds and confuse them with this garbage. This garbage spreads radicalism and is a failure. I want to know who approves these books. Is it one of you? Is it all of you? Is it the PTA? Who is it? Because don't let the buck pass and tell me you don't know that everyone needs to feel included here. I'm sick and tired of that rhetoric and the district's woke agenda. In this rainbow parade, you'll see in the picture right here, the man is naked walking down the street. His butt crack showing and all. This is a children's book. Why is there a naked man, pornographic material being shown to children in elementary school? Here's what the caption reads. Everyone is wearing whatever makes them feel most themselves, even if it means nothing at all. Do you think that's okay? Because it's not. I'm disgusted. I think it's sad that the school district that they don't even allow them to leave home alone in the school because of the offensive language where the one brother said, I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass. But yet this is the same school district that will allow this man's naked ass to show. What kind of people would allow this? Okay, this is profanity. Not my language. This is profanity. On the same page, 2 men in leather straps, S&M outfits, okay, holding hands. It's not appropriate for children. They should be brought up on abuse charges, whoever approves this. Endangering the welfare of a child, New York State Penal Code. I work in court. I'm a court stenographer. Well, guess what? My time is up. I'm going to have this time because I've had more than enough time to see my kid coming home with these books.
So she keeps on. So I wanted you to see the tenor and the kinds of language that she used in that original statement. And again, you see this is a pattern. You see this over and over again in these kinds of situations. And an interesting piece of this to me is, I'm going to pull back to my slideshow. Here we go. So this was a social media post that got posted after the second Penfield meeting, after the one where there were a lot of people. And you'll see it's close to the truth, but it changes facts. One of the big facts it changes is it says a kindergartner brought this home. When we heard the mother say it was her 5th grader who brought this book home. And that could be splitting hairs, I suppose, about where it is in the collection and whether it's there. But obviously that language was chosen on purpose. It was changed on purpose, just the way that happened to Amanda. That her words were taken out of context. Yes, she was there. Yes, she was speaking, but she was at a public library board meeting, not talking about her school library, not talking about particular books that she wanted to put in, but somebody took that information, conflated it with what they wanted to say, posted it on the internet, it went viral, and nobody bothered to go back and look at the original things that happened, right? They see it on the internet, it gets spread, people get upset. This was deliberately made to inflame people, right? And it worked. Penfield had a huge situation. They got calls, they got letters, they got threats. It was really difficult for them. Again, drawing the parallel right back to the book. So I think the thing, there's a lot here, right? But a big one is that the best way to lie, right, is to kind of take a couple true things and then distort it in some way. And this is something I've seen over and over in book challenge situations. I've seen it in literally everything on the internet. I feel like, so it's something to, I guess, be aware of as an information professional. I guess I'm super sensitive to it, but something that I really loved about this book is that Amanda talks a lot about journalists and journalism, right? And she talks about how she wanted to share her stories with journalists and not go on, not kind of go on these rants, but try to find something that's vetted, right? Journalists who are reputable, who can get the story out in a way that people can trust. But of course, this ties right into the fact that journalism is also crumbling, right? Journalists are having a hard time making a living. Newspapers are having a hard time staying open. Places like our local WXXI are experiencing financial difficulty, to keep operating and offering us stories that we can trust. This makes me very scared, both as an information professional and as somebody who's dealing with stuff like this. So that's one of my favorite parts of the book, honestly, and something that I think we all can take something away from. Let me look here. So I have wound up speaking on this because we had a book challenge at our library, and I wound up talking to the press about it. This was the same year, 2022, that Amanda had her book challenge. Mine was about, honestly, right around the same time, just a little before. And it went on the internet, and it was really upsetting. People said a lot of things. I'm going to show you what. I'm not going to play the story for you, but if you want to find it, it's Noelle Evans' story. So you are totally not going to be able to read that from there. Sorry. I thought it would be more readable, but I wasn't thinking. Here, I'll point out a couple things. Like, here is my phone number, my name, and a lot of this is a conversation this lady claims to have had with me that I did not have with her. That is the weirdest thing to see. To go on the internet and like see somebody like totally fabricating something. And it's not bad, but it just didn't happen. Others, there's a lot of swearing in here, which I find I can curse like a sailor, please. I've worked with the public a long time. There's nothing like working with the public to really hone your ability to swear. And also building facilities, speaking of the new HVAC. But boy, it's weird to have somebody be like, this book isn't acceptable for children. F this, F that. These people are, bleep, bleep, bleep. And you're like, what? Should we have some decorum? And I make light of it, but this was so upsetting. I mean, my father was like, I want are you taking a different route to and from work every day? What are you carrying with you? Can you take your husband's car sometimes? You know, my poor father, who's, you know, doesn't need to be worrying about me, was terrified. He's like, all these people are seeing this. What's it, you know, like, I felt worse for my dad than I did for me, to be honest. He was so upset. And you can't imagine how this disrupts your life. This ultimately culminated in somebody on a Saturday morning. So this all went down. The social media thing hit on a Thursday. The person posted on the internet about this book. Didn't submit a challenge form. I was kind of hoping she would, you know, eventually somebody else did. But anyway, on that Saturday morning, I thought, let me check my email. I try not to check my email on the weekends because I try to have good boundaries. But I checked, and somebody had sent an email to the sheriff's office asking them to investigate, and they CC'd me, my library and me for distributing pornography in the form of this picture book. It was a picture book for children. And, you know, I'm home and I read this and I think like what happens? Like what happens is like, do the sheriffs come to my house? Are they going to come to work on Monday? Like, is this real? What, you know, I don't know, you know, so I started making a lot of calls. I called our system director, you know, and she did some looking into things. I also talked to our town supervisor. I'm very lucky that our town supervisor in Henrietta is somebody who I can have a conversation with. Is very supportive. He actually went into these posts and started correcting facts because he's that guy. But not everybody has that kind of support. And I just, you know, personally, when I looked at this book, you know, and even listening to her speak in that first news story and she's crying, you know, it makes me tear up again. Like, it's just very real, that fear. Librarians, you know, library staff, we work in libraries because we have this sense of mission to the community, right? To the people we serve. There are lots of other things we could do. But the reason we're there is because we love people. We love, you know, sharing things with them. We love helping them. And so to have the community, you know, you expect they aren't going to love everything you do. Of course. My husband doesn't love everything I do. And he really has to love me. He vowed it. So, you know, that's okay. But to have people attacking you, trying to literally ruin your life, that's very, you know, it's hard to even process, you know. So as I read that Librarian, that was what I felt the most. I'd be so curious what people who don't work in libraries take out of a book like this. But that, to me, I just felt for her every minute of just feeling so confused about why people would literally try to ruin your life over trying to actually just help people do the job that you're paid to do. Make sure that everybody kind of gets this equal weight. That's the first thing you learn when you go to library school. Librarians go to, you know, lots of library staff are not librarians, but those of us who are librarians, we get a master's degree, you know, they teach us this. They're like, you have to have books that you don't agree with. You have to put them on display. You have to make sure all points of view are represented, because the community is a big thing. And also the community has a right to learn about things that are uncomfortable to them or different to them or new to them. It's the hugest thing. Amanda did win her case. And there was an apology. This just happened a couple months ago. So I wanted to make sure to include that in case you hadn't looked it up. There is a video apology that you can watch. That's just an apology. It's hard to tell whether he really means it or not. But, and he had to pay $1. Ryan Thames, I can't remember how he says his last name. He says it in a beautiful Southern accent. That's how he says it. So that's great for Amanda. And she's written this book. She's made a lot of money. She does a lot of speaking. She's really become such a, I think, shining light for a lot of librarians who go through situations like this. Very brave to do. I think she still gets hate mail constantly. Here's the First Amendment of our Constitution. I love the First Amendment. I love it so much. I think it is the most beautiful thing. And every bit of this story and the story of that librarian and a lot of these book challenges is in there, right? It's religion, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, of your freedom to read and think whatever you want to read and think. And also that journalists can be out there helping us figure out the truth. These things are together in one amendment for a reason. They're tied together. They're about our ability, right, as people to take things in and to let them change us or not, right? To explore, to be curious, to find the truth, to change our minds. These are beautiful things. These are not things we can take for granted. These are not common. They're common here in the United States. They're somewhat under threat, but across the world, across history, these rights are abridged all over the place, all the time. And I love living in a society where that is not the case. And I hope all of you do too. I doubt if you didn't believe that you would take the time to read a book like this and come to a talk like this, but I understand if you don't. I did want to offer some further reading and viewing if you liked this story, or if you wanted to know more. A great documentary, and I know at least a couple of you have seen it because I've seen you at screenings. That The Librarians is a new-ish documentary, and it does, Amanda's story is in it, but there are stories, there's huge issues in Texas that have national implication, and it talks about those, and it's just I've watched it twice now. It's wonderful. It is not available streaming yet, but lots of places are doing screenings. You can look on their website. I know a lot of libraries are planning to screen it during National Library Week locally, which is in April. Penfield just ran it the other night. I wish I should have made sure that she planned it a little later. Another book I'd recommend is Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams, which is actually about Facebook. And, that's kind of related, not related, but it talks about the values and how Facebook operates, I think, in a way that's very interesting. And I'm going to confess, not a huge nonfiction reader, but I found this riveting. I've recommended it a lot. And a lot of the misinformation, a lot of the harassment around this and a lot of other topics is happening through Facebook, right? So I think us all understanding that is really important. And I think
it's something real quick from the back to say Careless People is actually our PSI pick for March.
Oh, I totally knew that, and that's why I picked it. No.
March 5th, and retired DNC reporter Gary Cracken is going to.
Oh man, I gotta try to get to that.
Okay, so I know that.
Thank you. No, it's a riveting book. I found it really interesting. I listened to it and it's one of those, I don't know if any of you guys are audiobook listeners, but I was like, I'm gonna clean the fridge so I could read and listen to it more, kept finding chores. I always love that. The other thing I say is following Publishers Weekly is a great way to keep up on this. That's a magazine. It's a magazine of the publishing industry. It comes out weekly. They do great reporting on the book challenges and stuff and small digestible stories. And if you like books, you learn all about publishing, and they do book reviews and all kinds of things, Pub Weekly. So they're a great resource. I love it so much. I get it at home because contrary, people are always like, oh, it must be so great to be a librarian. You can read at work. I never get to read at work, never. So if I want to read something, it's got to be at home. So I highly recommend Pub Weekly as a way. There's lots of other ways that you can keep on top of what is going on, or at least have a good idea. So that's what I have for you about this book and my experience with these kinds of issues. Does anybody have any questions?
I've got the mic. Let's wait for the mic. We're going to come over. I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
As a mom and now grandma, I want to say, if my kids brought books home or my grandchildren, I'm not sure I would say we don't read that. I think I'd say we're going to read that together and talk about my views and help them. I thought about that when I read that saying up on the wall.
Yes.
Telling or teaching. That's my comment. My question, and I know it from the school library aspect. I have a daughter that sits on a local board, so I know what the challenge process is, but could you go over that for us from a public library view? So I see a book, I don't think it's appropriate, I fill out the form, then what?
So that's a great question. Every library is different. So in our county, each library is independently governed, and so they will all have different processes. I can tell you ours at Henrietta has actually just changed to a whole nother thing. But prior to the change, I'm going to talk about that because it's more analogous to what other libraries are doing. Usually we'll form some kind of committee that would review it, and would basically go back to this collection development policy. So the collection development policy says, what do you collect? Why do you collect it? What are your standards? How do you kind of pick? And these things are usually right on the library's website. They're supposed to be. You can go read it. And so you basically wouldn't be taking that book back to what the patron said as much as you'd be taking it to that policy to make sure you were following your own policy, right? That's really important to public libraries, any library. You have policies, you've got to follow them to try to take out our bias and our natural tendency to make mistakes as humans. So in our library, we would pick the selector. We'd pick somebody who has subject knowledge, somebody else on the staff who has subject knowledge, and then somebody who's totally outside of the department that selected the book. Now that's going to be, we're a bigger library, so we have enough staff to do something like that. Some libraries will have like the director and the selector. You know, it can be different depending on size of the library, construction of the library, how their process is set up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. Coming over here, Linda.
Thank you. My concern is who defends the rights of parents who say, you can monitor your child, but don't monitor mine. It seems that's very disturbing to me, that those parents, me included, who maybe have an open mind and would like to see books like this to reflect every child's background, because I've taught children of every single background and permutation that you could imagine, and they need to see themselves somehow in literature. And the second thing, it's not only librarians. I took my class one particular year to a sanctioned art gallery exhibit at the Memorial Art Gallery. And when the next day, my boss and I got a lot of calls on pornography that I was teaching. There was nothing pornographic in the exhibit we saw, or in the whole art gallery as far as I know, but on the way in and out, they must have seen some pictures of naked people and are wearing very few clothes. So, you know,
Right.
you have to kind of be able to shove some of this off and return the phone calls and explain things.
Yeah.
But it's very disturbing to me. I've been in libraries all over the country that I've traveled, and I think these books have an audience. And my child or other children who think the way I do or my husband did should have an opportunity to read them. And who is defending our rights?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, I have to say, you know, as somebody who worked with children a lot of my career, and that's where my expertise is. Parents are the best teacher of their kids. They're the first teacher and the best teacher. And I affirm that in every way. Like, if a parent doesn't want a child to read something, they should monitor that. They should do that. I totally get that. I'm not a parent, but if I was a parent, I'd be keeping an eye on it. I always say, like, my godsons, who I spent a lot of time with when they were little, now they're giant bigger than me. But when they were little, I'd be like, you hold this pant leg and you hold this pant leg when we were in the library. I have my eyes on them all the time because I want to know what they were doing, and it's a public place. And, so I would have exercised my right, I know. So the parents do have that right, but you're right. Also, a parent has that right, whatever that looks like, and those materials should be available. If you look at something like, picture books that teach about the birds and the bees, any library is going to have a whole range, right? Less informative, very vague, to extremely informative. So hopefully every parent can find something that's right for their family. That's our goal, especially with those kinds of topics where there is a range of thought,
Any other hands? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, part of the reason that people do these kind of actions and make these demonstrative demonstrations at these meetings is to influence things that are going to happen in the future. In other words, they think they're going to be able to pre-censor what librarians do in the future. Do you think that's happened? And certainly has it happened in your case?
100%, yes. I mean, they're effective at frightening people and affecting their decisions. I mean, we work hard not to, that's called soft censorship or self-censorship. So that's when you're afraid. And so you make decisions based on fear, basically, to not include something or not do something. And I'll tell you, we have, especially since that incident, I've had, I remember it was seriously like the next month after that, I had one of my young staff members come to me and was like, it was whatever month, I can't remember. You know what? I think it was Trans Visibility Month, actually. He came to me, he's like, I was planning on doing Trans Visibility Month. We do a lot of these month type displays. Should I not? And I was like, no, you got to do it. Like, that's what you plan to do. And I've had other questions, particularly from our younger staff members who are less experienced. But we talk a lot about various things we're going to do. And, okay, like, should we be doing this? Are we going to have backlash? We do a big Pride celebration in Henrietta every year, like the whole town. There's a big flag raising. It's actually really great. But we talk every year a lot about what the library's involvement is going to be, how we're going to be involved, how we're going to advertise what we're going to be involved. Like, do we put it on Facebook? Do we invite that fear? So there's no way that doesn't impact, right? And we have to weigh risk versus, really achieving our objective, right? So we kind of try to get down to, how do we make sure that we participate in this in a way that's positive, that reaches the people we want to reach without turning it into a circus, which we try to do every year, but we talk about it a lot because of that. Yeah, no, I'm afraid. I never felt afraid in my job. I feel afraid in my job now, honestly. It's so common to get threats, like you don't even think about it anymore, or at least I don't. I'm just like, some days, but they aren't necessarily, they'll be like, well, I'm going to call my lawyer, or I'm going to call, they love to tell me they're going to call the town supervisor. I'll be like, do you want me to call him? He's a nice man. But there's nonetheless, I joke, but that's meant to be a threat, right? So yeah, that does leave a mark. You can't help but know that people don't mean you as a human being well, no matter what kind of job you're doing.
We have a couple minutes left if anyone has any last questions or comments. Anything else? Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think I do teen services, but I think that the hardest job is children's services in terms of dealing with challenges because of this whole idea that you're protecting the children.
Right.
And I think school librarians have a lot harder time than public librarians. And I think that part of what, I remember the one video clip you showed where the school board yells back, I'm not getting paid anything. This is about the chair position. Because when you're a public school or a public library, people feel that they have a bigger right to decide what you're doing because they throw out the taxpayer.
Correct.
And there's some sort of stake that they feel they have in that. And that I feel like is what emboldens some people in terms of against public schools and public libraries in particular.
And if you want to talk about self-censorship, I think what a lot of this has done is made people not want to join school boards, not want to join library boards, not want to run for office, not want to become teachers, not want to become librarians. I know so many people have left the teaching and library profession in the last 5 years. A lot. People I never thought would leave. So
as a community, hold on one second. As a community, I feel like we have to be responsible. I mean, you saw there was hardly any people at that board meeting, but that woman was loud. And it's our responsibility to be just as loud and just as involved, in my opinion. So go to the board meetings, listen to what's being talked about, and get involved.
Yeah, it really it does matter. Even if you just write a note to be like, hey, I like what the library does. I think that having a variety of things is important. I think because it's the default, it's what a lot of people think is the default of what's happening. It's weird to say, can you just keep doing the default? You don't think to do that, but that is very helpful. Mm-hmm.
She makes that point in the book too. The people that did reach out and lend their support to her made a big difference.
Yeah, actually, after my interview with Noelle aired, one day I was eating lunch. These things always happen when I'm eating lunch. And one of my staff comes in and says, there's a minister here to see you. This is like the next day. And I'm like, oh no, okay. Let me just, okay. And I go, and he has a book that is, he's a retired minister, I learned, worked at one of the churches in Henrietta, and he brought in the book that he used to teach his children about the birds and the bees. And he was showing me, look at that, it's so saucy. And then he's like, I want you to know that, not all religious people want to attack people. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm telling you, it was one of the best conversations I ever had, and just at the right time that this man took this time out of his life to come show me support, make me laugh, and just be awesome. That stuff does matter a lot. Yes.
Your last comment back here. Okay. Who's this one? Yeah, sure. Jump right into it. I want to say I'm a retired special ed teacher, just recently retired. And I think that a lot of what's happening now, and I fully agree with that everybody should have the right to read and parent what their kids read or not. But I think a lot of what's happening now is due to two things. One is COVID. Parents were in the classrooms with their kids and they didn't like what their teacher was doing or what they chose to do, read, whatever. And they were more aware of that and they became teachers. They thought they were the teachers. And so I think that's part of it. And I think also that technology has really changed a lot of the way things, like when my kids were growing up, we didn't have all that technology and we weren't, as involved in that way. And I think things go very fast. I know in the school that I was in, that the parents had like WhatsApp groups, and if one parent didn't like something, they went on the WhatsApp group and it became wildfire.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what really fuels this, is that one person doesn't like it. I mean, they had a lot of people at that next board meeting because she went on her whatever group, right?
Yeah.
And she got all those people incited.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I know COVID, I think, is dividing line in a lot of our lives into things that were before and things like September 11th, right? Also, things that were before, things that were after. And I think we're going to be feeling the effects of that for a long time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adrienne.
Thank
Again,
you.
Please have my information desk in your app. They can please hold on the books for you. Have a good rest of your day.
I love